welcome back to a brand new episode of Couchside. Last week, we talked about what the Democrats can do in 2020 to win the White House. Now we're going to start taking a look at some individual policies.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of buzz in the news lately about a candidate named Andrew Yang, mostly because of his proposal for a universal basic income, or as he refers to it as, a freedom dividend. Now, just a little bit of background on Andrew Yang. He is the first Asian American man to run for president. He used to be working as an entrepreneur and also had his own nonprofit organization. And now he's running for president, and this is like really the hallmark, trademark issue of his campaign. He essentially wants to give $1,000 a month, no questions asked, to every adult in the country over the age of 18. Obviously, it's a proposal that a lot of people are viewing as radical, and it's not something that has been really means tested in the United States outside of, if you look at Alaska, they give a dividend out to their citizens, but it's a lower amount of money, ends up being roughly like $1,000 to $2,000 a year. This we're talking like $12,000 to virtually everyone in the country that's over 18. So it's quite different in scale. But one of the first questions that comes up, Gerald, is how does the country pay for it?
So when you hit me with this topic last night, you were like, dude, what are we going to talk about? Let's talk about UBI. And I was like, yes, we need to talk about this. As a sci-fi writer, for those that don't know, I write sci-fi. Mind blowing, right? As a sci-fi writer, universal basic income comes up a lot because with a lot of futuristic stories, a lot of, when people look at a lot of, like futurists look out into the future, they think about, automation, AI, what's going to happen when singularity comes. And they start thinking, well, what are humans going to do for work? If AI is doing most jobs, like I work right now, I work in IT support, which is a job that honestly I could see in 15 years, sadly, being taken over by some type of artificial intelligence. And more jobs are becoming automated. If you go to grocery stores, more and more, there are less cashiers and more automated registers. Even like people even propose that even certain law, jobs in law should be given to AI. But when it comes to universal basic income, I think it scares a lot of conservatives mainly because it's like, oh, here's another giveaway. But I think at the same time, me personally, I don't really have a big argument for or against it. Just more of like an insight to what could happen if the country, and this is obviously, I don't think it's something that should be pushed right now. I cannot say. I don't think in 2019, 2020, that's something that America should be probably thinking about. I think that's something probably we may have to face within 30, 40, 50 years, honestly. I think we're a ways away from needing UBI. And even when you start thinking about that, think about shows like, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the show The Expanse. It's a show on Sci-Fi. It's now on Amazon. And it takes place like a few hundred years from now where there aren't a lot of jobs for humanity. So everybody lives off something called basic. It gives you food, it gives you money. But people live in shitty conditions, like terrible conditions. Because, only the rich really profit. And I mean, if you look at the trends of the world, we could be heading that way.
Yeah, but again, looking at this policy proposal, and again, whenever you talk about expanding a social program or add a new social program, something that's designed to, help the citizens, but it's coming from the government, it's one of those things where the first question comes up is how do you pay for this? And it's a good question given the fact that this is a country we're talking about, we're over $20 trillion in debt, and anytime you're talking about expanding anything, you really got to think about this. So one of the things that gets brought up by the candidate, Andrew Yang, that's proposed this is the concept of a value-added tax. Now, this is actually something that most of the countries in the world have, but not the United States. And the idea is, you're taxing at each stage of the supply chain. Now, when you think about, you have sales tax when in a state, but that only really comes into play when you're actually buying the product or service. A value-added tax would be, to give an example, could be something like, okay, if the company decided to automate their trucks. So their trucks are delivering things without someone actually driving the truck. Well, maybe you tax that company for each mile that automated truck is going, a certain amount. You tax them upon delivery of the product a little bit. And it's basically these little micro taxes that add up to being something. And so Andrew Yang wants to go after the tech companies to make sure that, you know, they're paying their fair share. Amazon did not pay any federal tax last year. There's, you know, other companies that get away with that as well because of the way the tax system's set up. That's part of it, the value-added tax, and he has suggested 10% value-added tax. Most European countries are 20%. So it's actually kind of moderate in terms of that percentage. There's also been talk about a carbon tax and consolidating all the welfare programs. So this would be a situation where if this got implemented, it would be like a replacement of food stamps, unemployment insurance, some of those other types of programs that people are using currently. Help consolidate that a bit, and everyone just gets their $1,000.
You know, and while I feel like, you know, personally, me and I'm pretty sure yourself, we make well over $1,000 a month, so that really wouldn't cover my cost of living. I could see where you're coming from a different point of view. As a, you know, as a worker in America, again, someone that works in the IT field that sees technology growing, seeing it expanding, and it can be a little scary. I could see that that tax being placed on the companies as a way to keep jobs in the hands of humans. Like, you got to think, if you're taxing UPS, for example, who automates their trucking, you know, system, if they're getting overtaxed, at some point they're like, well, damn, we might as well just keep humans on. You know, depending on how high of a tax this could be, you may as well keep humans doing the job, and that could kind of curve that AI invasion of the workforce.
Well, and again, there's a lot of estimates that, especially like with retail, things like that, a lot of these jobs are going to go away.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you had to pick between either having a UBI system to offset that or simply just, you know, because what are you going to do? You're going to outlaw technology? You're going to say, hey, you're not allowed to, like, use robots in your workplace? Like, that's kind of, you know, just, like, unnaturally going in the wrong direction of the way that things are going. You know, companies are going to find a way to automate one thing or another to try and save themselves money, have more profit. But I also look at this from the standpoint of this, if this got implemented, I think another way it could help people is that, say you're someone that like really wants to start a business, but you don't want to like risk putting like all your money into that business with like no sense of security on the back end. At least you can know like, hey, I can take this chance, and if I fail, I'm still going to have my $1,000 a month coming in to like feed myself and maybe pay my rent. You know, I think it would allow people to really get out there and have more of an entrepreneurial mindset.
Yeah.
Now, there's other people that argue, no, to actually do the opposite. You know, you're going to have people that just are going to live off their basic income and not work. But it's, you know, the way I look at it is like, what are you trying to do? Just like live in a van down by the river and like collect $1,000 a month? Like,
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, when I think about it, I'm like, who the hell's living off $1,000? I think my rent alone is like $1,300, $1,400, something like that. It's like, what? Doesn't even cover. That doesn't cover anything. But I get it from a point of view of like something that has to be done. I mean, let's be honest here. This is going to be a serious issue. Maybe not right now, but again, within 15, 20, 30 years, this is going to be a serious issue for us. Like, what are humans going to do for jobs? Maybe society will shift and basic income will be just a thing that people have, and people will have more time to do things they want to do. I don't know. I don't know how the economy is going to change with that. And I think it's going to be something really interesting to watch happen. It's going to be both terrifying and exciting because technology growth is exciting, you know, and I think what I've heard about possibly coming is exciting and terrifying at the same time, though.
I will say one of the negatives I see to this policy, though, is that let's say it got implemented $1,000 a month, but then let's say in the next election cycle you have another candidate come along, notice that it's a wildly popular program, and say, I want to give you even more money, and then they raise it to like, you know, $1,500 and it keeps going up. I think that if you implement this, you have to have some kind of measure in place to like kind of keep it constant, or maybe like peg it to inflation or something. Make it so it's not like someone's going to come along and increase it to a ridiculous amount that makes no sense.
Yeah, because I mean, at some point, you're going to get backlash from the consumers, from citizens that are having higher taxes, because when you're talking about, oh, let's give $1,500 to every single person in America. I mean, we're talking hundreds of millions of people in the country. Hundreds of millions of people with about $1,500. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of tax dollars. And like you said in the beginning, you're talking about a country with almost $20 trillion in debt. I don't know who the hell we owe, like Jupiter or somebody. I don't fucking know. But but it is something that would definitely hurt that deficit. It's definitely going to do more harm than I think good, at least looking at today's economics. Who knows what the world's going to look like in 10 years. But right now, I think that could definitely, in some cases, if you do start taxing companies like Amazon, you know, where they're making billions upon billions, some crazy amount of money, yeah, maybe that could work. Because again, you do have a lot of social programs like welfare, like food stamps and, you know, WIC and other things that I feel like a UBI for even those people would be almost more beneficial than food stamps or WIC or stuff like that.
Right. But I think even independent of UBI, like we got to think about the value-added tax, because the thing is, if your whole system is based off collecting tax from income, well, once jobs start getting automated away, you're not going to be able to collect income tax from robots. You know, you're going to have these companies that get away with not paying tax.
Well, you're going to be virtually paying nothing and getting all the profit. I mean, again, you would have to maintain the machine, but that's next to nothing compared to the amount of money you aren't going to have to pay a salaried person. Like an IT company that pays someone, I don't know, $70,000 a year. They're not going to have to pay that guy. They're not going to have to pay that damn android that much money. So that right there is like, that's one $70,000 salary. And in an office like mine, where there's easily like 150, 200 people, so you're talking 200 times 70, it's a lot of freaking money. Wow, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money that a company like, you know, Amazon or Comcast or Verizon may not have to pay. You know? And then on the back end, you got to pay something out, you know? You're collecting all this money but not paying anything out in taxes.
And I think on the other side, I mean, you might have a lot of conservatives that would argue against the value-added tax and say that, hey, you know, the way our tax system is here, being very favorable and pro-business is part of the reason America's great. And, you know, that may be a valid argument, but at the same time, I mean, I just look at the fact that, you know, how can you have a nominal tax rate at a certain amount, and then what the businesses are paying is actually down here.
Exactly.
I think it helps offset that a little bit, and that's why I think so many countries do that now.
Yeah, exactly. And, I mean, when you think about, again, the deficit, if you had companies like Amazon paying their fair share, if everybody paid, like, if they had set the tax, and I think we talked about it in another episode, maybe even just in conversation, if everybody paid, like, a certain, like, percentage, just, for example, 10%. If everybody paid 10%, no matter how much you made, whether you made $25,000 or you made $25 billion, that's going to balance out to really help the economy. And again, like I said, that's getting away from our main topic of universal basic income. But again, with the country with such a weird tax code that really benefits the rich, I think that would benefit, honestly.
Well, and UBI is one of the more bold proposals we've absolutely seen during this primary process so far. I mean, the big buzz is, of course, Medicare for all, but now you have Andrew Yang coming along, talking up UBI. He's going to be doing, you know, town halls on CNN. He's getting interview. I actually just saw an interview recently he did with Ben Shapiro. So he's talking with conservatives. He's talking with the mainstream media. He's talking with the liberal networks. He's talking with everybody and really getting this idea out there. And if you want more information on it, I would definitely look up some of those videos where, you know, he's doing these other interviews talking about his policies, being challenged on it, and that, I think, will also help you learn more about it. But yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting proposal. My view on it is, like, yes, we have a heavily in debt country, but hey, we got there with a bunch of bullshit that was just, you know, wars, a bunch of stuff that doesn't actually help anybody. At least here comes along a proposal that you're going to see that money in your pocket.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of things that took advantage of the consumer. I think essentially we live in a country, and again, we're probably going to get a ton of slack on my Facebook post. I can already see it. My comments are going to be blowing up, dude. But we gotta, like, this country was made great off of, I think, a lot of things that took advantage of us, the consumer, the taxpayer. So something like this, some type of kickback, some type of bonus, I'm not against it. Whether or not it's this one, that sounds crazy when I really did a math. It's like, wow, that's a lot of money. But just something almost, would sound better than nothing.
Yeah, so, like I said, guys, there's plenty more information out here on UBI. We just wanted to bring up the topic, talk about it a little bit, but plenty of interviews out there with the candidate that is pushing this proposal. He's also got a whole bunch of detail on his website as well. So if you want to do additional research and look into it, there's plenty of places to go. But thanks for watching Couchside. Leave a comment below. Let us know what you think about UBI. Let us know what you think about the 2020 candidates so far. We're interested to hear your input on that.
Take care and don't forget to like and subscribe.